Welcome back. Musician, actor and activist Harry Belafonte has died at the age of 96. He's credited with recording popular folk songs from African nations around the world and introducing them to the mainstream. This includes the 1965 album An Evening with Belafonte and Makeba, a partnership with great African songstress Miriam Makeba. The album went on to win a Grammy Award. To reflect on his legacy, our Washington correspondent Jagruti Dave joins me now. Jagruti, thank you so much for speaking to us this evening. Certainly a very sad loss, not only for the music industry, but also for civil rights and human rights movements across the globe. Harry Belafonte lived a life dedicated not only to the arts, but to fighting specifically against racial oppression and fighting for human rights here in Africa as well. Can you give us some highlights of that humanitarian work?
I think there is just so much to choose from. He is being lauded in a variety of spheres, from the music industry to the acting industry, and as you rightly mentioned, from human rights organizations. The UN Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, issued a statement expressing his condolences to the family, to Belafonte's family, calling him a fearless activist. He was a UNICEF ambassador, and he worked tirelessly on many causes. Antonio Guterres kind of talking about the work he did to alleviate poverty, to raise awareness about children's issues, and saying that basically that we could do a lot to learn from the work that he did in these areas. He was an anti-apartheid activist, he was a civil rights activist, he helped organize the March on Washington in 1963 that culminated in that I Have a Dream speech given by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He worked with celebrities to organize that. He founded the Sankofa charity here in the United States. There's just so much to choose from in terms of the richness of his work in civil rights, but also in human rights.
In terms of the confluence of that musical career, where he popularized calypso music and his human rights work, he was also very involved in Live Aid, and he instigated that song We Are the World to raise so much money for children in Africa. What reaction has there been from the music industry in the US to his death?
Yeah, I think people are just celebrating his achievements here. People are talking about the impact that he made across his work in music and human rights. He didn't just silo himself into one thing or the other. He used his talents and his abilities, people are saying, to bring all of these features together, using his music to further his humanitarian work as well. And this is just an example of the kind of person that he was, that he would take on causes and really feeling very passionately about them. So he had prostate cancer, and he was a champion of raising awareness of the symptoms of prostate cancer, for example. Just to give you an idea of the passion that he had for activism. And I think, you know, with music, he worked with such greats when he started out, the likes of Miles Davis in the jazz scene, and he really, you know, popularized Caribbean music here in the United States. So I think the work that he did, people are saying that it's difficult to express in words just the impact that he's had in music, but also in his activism.
So we're showing on our screens now, you won't be able to see it, but a lot of photographs of Harry Belafonte with some incredible world greats and such an incredibly rich life. Do we know a lot about the later years? And 96 is a ripe old age, but has he been very active in the last 10 years or so?
I think he has been, he was very close to the likes of Sidney Poitier, the late great actor, and they went to these events, the NAACP charity events, and as I say, as a survivor of prostate cancer, he did work to raise awareness of the symptoms of that illness. So, he very much was continued to be active, and he is clearly being remembered throughout his long, illustrious career career, the work that he'd done in all of these spheres. And I think people don't only just remember him for that third album of his, Calypso, that catapulted him into musical fame, being dubbed the King of Calypso, but he's held many, many titles, had many hats, and I think people are remembering him, the work that he's done throughout his career, not just in the early stages.
So he also served in the Navy in World War II and served his country, as we've already said, in many other ways in terms of advocacy. What honours have been bestowed on him in the US during the course of his life?
Well, he was an EGOT winner, so he was a winner of all of the major awards, the Grammys, the Emmys, and all of these. An honorary Academy Award, all of these kinds of awards he has been a recipient of. He won 2 Grammys. He's considered to be the first black person to win an Emmy Award. He was one of the first, possibly the first, black film producer in the United States to win one of those accolades. So he has been given so many awards and titles. He was nominated 11 times for a Grammy. So he really has had a distinguished career. It's very difficult to kind of list all of the things that he has been applauded for, but an incredibly distinguished career that many people are remembering today with this sad news of his loss.
Absolutely, and here in South Africa, he's has a lot of significance here as well. One of his albums, Paradise in Gazankulu, dealing with the plight of black South Africans under apartheid. Lots of connections to prominent South Africans, Archbishop Desmond Tutu, Miriam Makeba. So I'm sure many South Africans here also mourning his loss. Thank you so much to our correspondent from Washington, Jagruti Dave, talking to us about the passing of Calypso great actor and activist Harry Belafonte.